Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Gina Conley holds a master's degree in exercise science and is the founder and CEO of MamasteFit, an industry-leading perinatal fitness provider with a training facility located in Aberdeen, North Carolina. Gina is a seasoned birth doula who has supported nearly 200 births in North Carolina. Her unique experience of exclusively training perinatal fitness clients in person and online, coupled with supporting births as a doula, has resulted in a brand titled Mama Stay Fit, creating in-depth prenatal fitness programs, which also supports clients recovering in postpartum to return to their desired sport or professional demands. Gina is the author of her book, Training for Two: Safe and Smart Prenatal Exercises for a Smoother Pregnancy, Easier Birth, and Healthier Newborn. 90 plus resistance training, mobility, birth prep, and labor support exercises, which she released in September of 2024. Gina provides expert fitness programming and coaching tailored for women through every stage of their motherhood journey, from staying active during pregnancy to healing in the postpartum period and building lasting strength with the barbell. You can find her on social media and also on her website at www.mamastayfit.com. Gina Conley, would an absolute honor to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor to host you. First things first, we have to ask you about the name, Mama Stay Fit. Do you know how many influencers are out there that are absolutely kicking themselves that they didn't come up with that name first? It's such a great name for your branding. I just have to ask you, were you the one to come up with it? And yeah, how did you come up with the name?
I kind of did. I had like a tank top that had like Mama Stay on it, which I thought was really cool. And when I was trying to figure out my business name, I was like, well, I need something fit because everything is like blank fit whenever it's like a fitness business. And then I remembered like the Mama Stay, and I was like, oh, I should just be Mama Stay Fit. And so the whole thing with like Namaste, which is like a yoga phrase, is the light in me sees the light in you. So there's something in me that is the same in you, and we can connect through that, even though a lot of things are different. And so it felt kind of neat to be like the mom in me sees the mom in you. And so there's something that's the same between us because we have this shared experience. And we may approach motherhood in very different ways. We may make all sorts of different parenting decisions, but ultimately, because we're both moms, well, not you and I, but like me and a mom, I can see that same thing in you, and that is going to allow us to connect with one another. And so that's where the name came from. I didn't like totally come up with it by myself. I did take it from a tank top that I had, but I added the fit, and then we made a whole brand with it. And so yeah.
Well, of course, you would give such an eloquent answer and a beautiful answer to such a silly question, which I absolutely love. I've seen the T-shirts that have like llama stay on them, and it's like llamas, whatever. But yeah, I really like the Mama Stay. The name is really good, and your work is really amazing. I really like the content you produce, and you make things really, really accessible for people. And we've got a lot to talk about today. I've learned quite a bit of things that I didn't know that I thought I knew before listening to you and talking about things, which I definitely want to get to in the content of your book and everything. But I'm curious. I've heard you on a few different episodes. I heard you on the episode with Dr. Nolte, who we've had on our show as well. She was amazing. But I just wanted to ask you, like, how did you get interested in this kind of thing? Were you interested in the fitness kind of first while you were going to college and getting your degree, and then kind of expanding that into motherhood? Like, how did that look for you?
So it started with the fitness aspect. So I used to be in the military and I transitioned off of active duty when I was pregnant or I was postpartum with my baby. My husband is currently active duty in the army, and so it for us it didn't make sense for both of us to be in the military. It's a really demanding job, and it's really hard when both parents are kind of going all over the place. And so it was important for us to have one parent that was kind of the stay-at-home, stable parent. And while I was home and I had all this time with this baby, I was like, let me start a business. And so with the newborn baby, I started Mama Stay Fit. And we started with just fitness training. And so I was wanting to do more like personal training in the perinatal space. So for pregnancy and the postpartum, mostly because that was the area that I was in. I was already interested in exercising. I have a strong background in fitness because I liked working out. Some of my jobs in the military was like helping to train like host nation forces physically. And so I kind of want to continue that postpartum with my new group of friends. And so I started with the perinatal fitness, and my main as I was kind of developing my business, I was trying to figure out like how am I going to do this, like how am I going to be different than other people. And so I started with just in person, and we kind of did like an open gym format where people can come within like a 2-hour time block to work out. because as a mom, it's really common to be late to just life. It's hard when a little baby has a lot of say in how efficient you are getting out the door. And so it just becomes one other thing that you struggle with is to get to things on time. And so we adjusted our classes initially to where it's like you just come during this 2 hour time block and I'm going to walk you through essentially like a one-on-one workout with like 6 other people. Um, so everyone had like a little placard card that they would like work through their own individual workout, and I would just kind of bounce from person to person, and it worked, and it was awesome. After about a year of doing that with just pre and postnatal fitness clients and kind of figuring out my programming and seeing like what made sense, what didn't make sense, what was helping people feel better, what was maybe a movement that needed to go, one of my prenatal clients asked me to be her birth doula, and she was like, "Hey, I think I need what you're providing for me here during my birth as well." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. That's like the next step for me." But I needed to have a team set up to be able to coach the classes when I was gone. So at this point, me and one of my clients decided to become doulas together. And so we would support one another. And then a few of my other clients became coaches for me. And so I essentially had employees all of a sudden. And so they were helping me coach the classes. And so if I had to go to a birth, they were available. And then me and the other client started becoming doulas. And eventually, like, it's of all of the clients from the beginning, only one of them is still coaching with me, and I'm just doulaing by myself. But that's kind of how it happened. One of my clients was just like, "Hey, by the way, I want you to be at my birth. So I need you to go take a course." And I was like, "Okay, I'll be there." And so at the beginning of my doula career, I lucked out, but it was not a fortunate situation for the doula that I was backing up. The doula that was my doula at my birth, her father ended up getting really sick, and she was pretty much in the hospital all the time, and she needed someone to help her with all of the births that she had. And so in a really short period of time, I was able to get a lot of experience very quickly, which is really uncommon for like a brand new doula. And I'm really thankful for that opportunity. It was really tragic for her. But I used it as best as I could to help other people at that time. And from that, I have started noticing lots of movement patterns that were happening, lots of like common issues that were occurring during birth, and then births where there weren't really any issues. And so I spent my time as a doula being really observant over what was happening. How is this person moving, and what does that correlate to? Is there a pattern that I'm seeing? Because that's something that's really unique about the doula like profession is we are with somebody the entire time. That's not to discount the medical expertise of the providers or the nurses, like, they 100% are valuable and value added, and the more I've learned, the more valuable I understand how important medical providers and medical teams are, but they're not in the room the whole time, and so there's little subtle cues that they're missing because they don't have the opportunity to just sit and watch somebody, like, they've got a bunch of other people that they're tending to. There's other things that they're thinking about, and so this is where having a doula can be really helpful is I get to just sit there and like watch you labor. But because I'm sitting there the whole time, I'm noticing all these subtle cues and I'm starting to connect the dots. Be like, okay, when someone starts moving like this seems to happen after that. And I think they're correlated to one another. And then it happens enough times where I'm like, I think that when I see this is the next step. And so that was something that I spent a lot of time doing as a doula was what are the subtle cues? And then how can I take that understanding and improve my prenatal programs? How can I take what I'm seeing happen at birth and improve my postpartum programs based on what I really understand people need to recover from? And so my programming at that point became really full spectrum and they really complemented one another in like a really enhanced way to where my prenatal programs included so much more of like the nuances of birth preparation in addition to staying strong and pain-free throughout your pregnancy. And then my childbirth education course was kind of including so much of the movement aspect on both front ends because labor is a very physical activity. Like there's a whole lot of mental stuff as well, but there's a lot like there's a baby physically moving through your body. And so it's beneficial to know, well, what kind of movements are going to help me do that? What kind of movements that are going to help me set the conditions in my favor? And then for postpartum, okay, well, all of this stuff happened during birth. All of this stuff is happening during pregnancy. How can we best support your recovery and your return to sport and your return to whatever it is that you want to do after you give birth? So that was kind of how the journey happened. I started just fitness. Somebody asked me to be their doula. I expanded in there, and then I just started connecting all these dots together, and that's how we created MamasteFit and what it is now. And that's one of the really unique aspects about MamasteFit is we're one of the only ones that have both the fitness training and the birth work. Usually it's like one or the other with maybe a little sprinkling of the other. Like a fitness trainer is doing like a little bit of birth education, or a birth worker is doing a little bit of like fitness stuff. We're the only one that's like legitimately both, where we're supporting in-person pre and postnatal fitness clients. We're supporting in-person pre or in-person birth clients. My sister, who's my partner, is a labor and delivery nurse and student midwife, so she adds on the medical perspective of things. And so we're pretty unique in what we offer here at MamasteFit.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've certainly never heard of that kind of meshing of those two things. That makes so much sense. And I just my some of my favorite stories are when people think they're going to be doing one thing, a different opportunity comes along, and they're open to it, and they, like you said, like are observant. They're open to learning something new, and all of a sudden it takes them on this completely different path they would have never imagined. If I go back, probably 20 years and say, "Hey, you're going to be a doula," you probably laugh me,
Oh yeah,
out of my
I would
face,
have
like, no way.
never imagined myself here, which is like weird because even when I was working in the military, which is obviously a very male dominated environment, it was still very much like, how can I support other women? How can I support other females in this same capacity as me? So it makes sense that this was my progression, but I would have laughed in her face if you told me like you're going to be really into birth. I'm like, I'm good.
Kidding. Wow, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. I really love it. Tell us some of the biggest myths that you hear about pregnancy. I mean, it could be anything. You hear that, you're pregnant, so you're eating for two. You need to stop working out altogether if you were working out. Definitely don't start working out if you haven't been already. You can do the same things maybe for a few weeks in the first trimester, and then you can't anymore. Like, what are some of the myths that you hear all the time? It seems to be very confusing, and there's lots of like really hard limits of what you should do and what you shouldn't do that don't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
So there's two different ways I want to go with this answer. And I'm going to start with my traditional response, which is the movement aspect, and then I want to talk about like the other one, which is you have absolutely no control and you should just show up and just do whatever the doctor tells you, because like it doesn't matter if you have a plan, like things are going to go however they, because that feels really chaotic and out of control, but and like there is some surrender, but you still do have some control. But first I'm going to start with the common myths that we hear in regards to movement, especially with like exercise. Exercising throughout your pregnancy is incredibly beneficial. They're hands down, it's like one of the best things that you can do to help support your health during your pregnancy, your baby's health and development throughout your pregnancy. And so if there's one thing that you can do to have a better experience simply during your pregnancy is to exercise. Obviously, there are some conditions where exercise is contraindicated. Usually these are like pre-existing conditions. Like if you already have something where exercise is not great for you, it's probably going to be the same during pregnancy. And then sometimes there are some complications that could develop where if you're in preterm labor, you should go to the hospital. You shouldn't go do a workout. Like if your water broke, don't go do a workout. Go see your provider. Call your doctor. But in general, exercise, especially if you're a low risk pregnancy, is really safe to do. Two of the biggest myths that you hear is it's going to negatively impact the length of your pregnancy. So it's going to cause miscarriage, it's going to cause preterm labor, or it's going to negatively impact your baby's growth. So your baby will be way too small, or sometimes people think your baby will be way too big, but usually those babies tend to be really lean and the perfect size for whoever they need to be born from. The first myth is it's going to impact your pregnancy length is untrue. Like it's been researched. Research repeatedly demonstrates that exercise does not increase your risk of miscarriage. Miscarriage is something that happens at 1 out of 4 pregnancies. It's really common, and there's usually nothing that you did. I would say like there probably is like almost 100% nothing that you did to cause that miscarriage. It's just one of those things that happens. It's really tragic. And if we tell people that exercising was the reason why that happened, it's going to just put more burden on them. Like that's not helpful. Like you can lift super heavy weights and it's not going to cause your baby to detach. Like usually it's a chromosomal abnormality. There was nothing that you could have done to cause it. And unfortunately, there was nothing that you probably could have done to prevent it either. And so I just want to take that out right there. Like exercising, even in your first trimester, heavy, high intensity does not cause miscarriage. It also doesn't cause preterm labor. The reason why this may be a myth is if somebody is having some preterm labor or if they're having complications during their pregnancy, their provider may put them on bed rest because physical activity could increase contractions. Or if you're in labor, you may be told to move more and that can cause more contractions. Your body needs 2 different hormones for labor contractions to happen. And if you don't have both of those hormones, your labor will not occur. So if you exercise, you probably have some oxytocin releasing, which may cause some cramping of your uterus or some initial contractions, but they're really uncoordinated. Without prostaglandins, in addition to that oxytocin, your uterus is not going to coordinate its contractions in a way to cause change to the cervix. So if you have some cramping or some like tightening of your belly during your workouts, it's usually not a problem because you're not having that wave like coordinated contraction that's causing labor to progress. So exercising during your pregnancy is not typically going to cause preterm labor. Now, if you have a complication like a really short cervix or there's something going on already, then exercising may not be optimal for you. Like you probably have a complication where exercise is contraindicated. So like common myths that I hear in regards to just do what you did before. What if you did nothing? What if you did nothing? You should just do more of nothing. No, you can absolutely start a workout program during your pregnancy. Like we're not going to maybe join like the RX CrossFit gym like class like day one and train for the CrossFit games. Like maybe not going to start training for a marathon like in your first trimester, but you could absolutely like exercise. Like walking is exercise. You can lift weights. You can just do a class that feels good for you. If you're brand new to exercising, I would definitely recommend like either do on-demand videos, hire a trainer, do a class, like work with somebody in person so they can teach you what to do. But lifting weights, even during pregnancy, even if you've never done it before, incredibly beneficial to do. And I would highly recommend it, especially if you have the resources available to you. Other myths are like don't get your heart rate above this certain level. Heart rate is not a really is a horrible cue during pregnancy to let you know your intensity level. Really, just kind of tuning into how your body feels is going to be a much better indicator. Each trimester, like your blood volume is very different. So your blood pressure is different, how your heart rate is moving, your fatigue levels, your hydration levels. There's so many different factors that can impact your heart rate. That recommendation came out from like an ACOG bulletin that came out, and then the next bulletin, the guy was like, I didn't base it on anything. Forget that, but it stuck. It stuck. So I would say working out at like a 70 to 80% effort level for you that day, which may be different than the previous day and maybe different than pre-pregnancy, maybe different than tomorrow. But that day, a 70 to 80% effort, like a moderate intensity, is usually pretty fine to be in. Now, if you were laying on the floor and your heart feels like it's going to bust out of your chest, you probably did a little bit too hard. If you were just like casually, like we were just talking like I am right now, you're probably going a little too easy. Like we could increase the effort just a tiny bit there. So usually with moderate effort, if you're doing like more cardio stuff, you can speak like a short sentence before you get more winded. If you're lifting weights, you can usually do like 2 or 3 more reps before like your form is going to deteriorate. But we still want to move with really good form during pregnancy. We want to try to minimize like movement compensations as much as we can because we don't want to increase our risk of injury. And so it's probably going to be a little bit more strict movements, maybe more low impact. So running may not be great the whole time. Maybe it is. Runners usually are very passionate about running, so I don't want to like have anybody come for you on your podcast. But those are kind of like the main myths. When it comes to movement during pregnancy, if it feels good for you and your body, it's probably fine to do. If you feel like you're moving at a moderate intensity level, it's probably fine to do. If your provider has not given you any guidance to say do not do X, Y, or Z, it's probably fine to do. There's tons of benefits for both you and for your baby. Your risk of developing a complication decreases like 30 to 40%, which is pretty substantial. So preeclampsia, hypertension, gestational diabetes, like a significant amount of decrease just from exercising a few times a week. It doesn't even have to be super high intensity. Like 3 times a week going for a walk can decrease your risk of developing those complications. Those complications could increase the number of interventions that you need during your birth, which could potentially make your birth more complicated and maybe make your postpartum recovery a little bit more complicated. Not necessarily, but the more we kind of happen during our birth, the more complicated it may be down the road. So if we can decrease that, that would be really good for not only your pregnancy, your birth, but also for your postpartum recovery. Other things that are going to happen when you exercise, it's going to help to increase bone density, which is going to be a really big deal, especially postpartum when your bone density can be impacted by breastfeeding. It's going to help to sorry, my brain is just like turning off right now. It's going to help to increase your blood volume even more than it was previously. So outside of exercising, it's usually about a 45% increase. If you exercise, it's like 55 to 60%, which is substantial. Like that's like an extra 15% of blood volume to help you respond to stress. That's a really big deal. You're going to be able to, your length of labor will probably decrease because you'll have more stamina to maintain an upright position longer. You tend to have less maternal fatigue during labor, during pushing, which may require more interventions if you are just done pushing, which is also very physically intensive. And so labor is going to potentially be like a little bit easier for you. And there are some nuance to that as well. When it comes to your baby will also have higher blood volume. Their nervous system is more developed. They have more cognitive brain development at birth. So that translates to improved language skills, motor skills, all sorts of skills in the first year of life. And that's a big deal. And those are really lesser known things. So it's not just exercise is good for you. Like there are some like legit benefits of exercising during your pregnancy for both you and for your baby to have a better experience during your pregnancy, to potentially have a better birth experience. And then more importantly, it's going to help you recover easier in the postpartum. So prenatal fitness is not all about birth. It's also about setting a foundation to recover from in the postpartum timeframe as well. The other myth that I mentioned at the beginning that I want to talk about is this kind of notion that you should just show up, don't even bother having a birth plan. Your birth plan just needs to be everyone's alive, and there's no control, just so completely surrender to whatever happens to you. Now, of course, there are some like out of the box things that are really unlikely to happen that could happen. They can happen and with anything in our lives. Like I don't not wear a seatbelt just because, well, if I get hit by somebody, like I'm just completely out of my control. Like I can set the conditions in my favor as best as I can. It doesn't guarantee a specific birth outcome. It doesn't guarantee an unmedicated vaginal birth. It doesn't guarantee a VBAC, or it doesn't guarantee like a specific type of birth outcome to happen, but I can set the conditions in my favor. I can choose a provider that I feel is supportive of me, that I feel respects me as a person, that is willing to do informed decision making with me, to do shared decision making with me, so that I can set the conditions well in my favor. I know that whatever happens during that birth, I'm going to feel respected. I'm going to feel good about what happened. I'm going to educate myself beforehand on what my options are. This doesn't mean that I'm doing all my research to counter whatever my provider tells me to do or not do. Like, one, choose a provider you trust to guide you, but you still have decision making autonomy. And the only way to have that is by educating yourself on what your options are. And again, this doesn't mean like come in with like a binder of all your research that you've done to throw at your provider to be like, hey, I'm not going to take that intervention because X, Y, and Z. Like, but you can understand like Pitocin is not the only option if you have a labor stall. We can also try these movements. We can try drinking some water. We can try eating a snack to see if that progresses things. So if you understand what your options are, this is going to help you kind of navigate your birth and to maintain your decision-making authority, which is going to be really important to having a positive birth experience. It's not about just showing up and just crossing your fingers and hoping for your best. We can set the conditions in our favor. The other thing that we can do is we can physically prepare for birth. Your baby has to navigate through your pelvis. And the pelvis is not just bony structure. There's muscles and ligaments and tissues that are all attached to it. And your baby has to position itself and like fit through that space. So during pregnancy, we can do exercises to help set the conditions of our pelvis in our favor. Can I release tension within my pelvic floor? Do I have good pelvic mobility? Can I change positions really well and easily so that I can create more space for my baby? Am I doing movements that help to support my baby's positioning? Because the way that they position themselves is also going to help them move through my pelvis as well. So we can physically prepare it for birth in that way. And so I hate when I see stuff that's like, just show up and just cross your fingers and whatever happens happens. You have no control, because you do have some control. Like we can absolutely set conditions in our favor, choosing a good provider that feels aligned with your values and what you're wanting for your birth experience, educating yourself so that you know your options, physically preparing for your birth, like choosing other people to be who's going to be on your birth team, whether it's your partner, a doula, family, or friends. Somebody else that's going to be there to help support you throughout your labor is going to be really important as well. So we can set the conditions in our favor. It's not just hope for the best. There is some surrender that has to happen. You don't know exactly how your contractions are going to feel or how long it's going to be or how short it's going to be. But yeah, so those are kind of like my myth busting that I want to do.
Amazing. Such a clinic. I love that. Yeah, when you and I create workout plans for people, like you and I are coming up with the best plan that we can think of, but we don't know how you're going to be in that day and which movements are going to work and not work and whatever. And we always have to be adjusting. And so I think that's fair to have a birth plan and understand, like, yeah, we'd like it to go this way. This is our best educated guess about how we think we want things to go. And within that, we can dance with the circumstances and flow with that. So I really love that. It's a little, I don't know. I've never considered this. I think it's embarrassing because I considered it the opposite direction, where if the mother is metabolically unhealthy, the baby is also going to be very metabolically unhealthy. For example, if she's got gestational diabetes, if she already had type 2 diabetes, she's already insulin resistant, you're going to pass that along to the baby, who's going to think, not think, but it is going to like be, created in a world where there must be tons of, carbohydrate, sugar, energy. So we need to also be insulin resistant. That baby's going to be more likely to be insulin resistant. I never thought about it in the opposite direction until I found your content of like working out and being healthy works the opposite direction, where the baby's actually going to be much, much healthier in a positive direction. I never considered that before your work. And so can you explain a little bit more into that? I know you just kind of covered it a little bit there, but like, how is it that exercising, we might think like stressing the body during this, maybe sensitive time is actually doing so much good for the baby itself?
Yeah, so it's one of the things that we don't I never thought about it either until I was researching for my book, and I was like, "Of course! Like,
Oh
of
yeah, of
course!" Like,
course.
we all believe the opposite, like you were saying, like, if you have complications, it's gonna impact your baby's development. And that's not to, like, blame somebody or to put that on them or anything, but, like, if you have preeclampsia or hypertension, it's gonna impact your placenta potentially, which could impact your baby's development, which is why induction is usually recommended. So why would we not believe that the opposite also happens? I remember when I was in like middle school or high school and you're doing like biology, they're talking about genetics. They're like, oh, you can't inherit your parents' biceps. So just because your mom like exercises doesn't mean like you're gonna have big muscles. Yes, you can. Yes, you can actually. Like if I exercise during my pregnancy, it benefits my baby. They essentially work out as well. So the mechanics of it are like not well understood because women are just not included in research studies, especially pregnant women. So, but the theory is, well, if we are introducing this exercise-induced stress, this is a different type of stimulus that our baby is responding to. And the more type of stimulus that you introduce to a baby, the more their brain develops, the more neurons that fire and connect to one another. And so if you just think about the first year of life, all of like the parenting stuff is like show them this book that's black and white to stimulate their brain, to give them these toys. And so it's all about like introducing different stimulus to them to help develop them in the first year of life. Well, why couldn't I do that during pregnancy? Why why would that not be something that they are taking on as they are developing during their pregnancy? And then if you think about if I have when I'm exercising, this is increasing my blood volume. This is increasing my muscular mass. This is increasing like how my body is responding to different nutrients. So why would it that not also be helping my baby as well? So that's where I think like the cognitive development and the nervous system development comes from is we are introducing exercise-induced stress during pregnancy in a controlled way that is introducing different type of stimulus to baby and it's increasing those different neuron connections and yeah, so that's like that part. When we are exercising more, this is also going to improve your placenta development, which is huge. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that helps with babies like physical development. So your placenta is going to be larger and it's going to have more functional capacity. Your placenta is essentially like the organ that does all of the things for your baby. It's their immune system, it's where they're breathing from. So their oxygen is being pushed to them, it's pulling the CO2 away from baby, it's removing all the metabolic waste, it's nourishing them. Like the placenta is doing so much for our baby. And so when it's operating really, really well, this baby's gonna be really oxygenated. It's getting all of the nutrients, it's getting all of the benefits from us, and it's also all the bad stuff is being taken away from them in a really effective way. If you exercise in the first half of your pregnancy and you maintain that moderate intensity level, this is going to most positively impact your placenta's development. Now, if you are like, well, my first trimester sucks, I'm like really sick and tired, you still got like 8 weeks after the first trimester to really support your placenta's development as well. So if the first trimester sucks, like it does for me, you still got like a good amount of time after you feel a little bit better to really get after it in the gym. You got 2 months right there to start getting after it. If you go into pregnancy and a higher level of conditioning, those like 1 to 2 months that you take off in the first trimester will not be as dramatic. Like you'll have more conditioning to kind of fall back onto when you resume in the second trimester to really support that placenta development in the first half of pregnancy. So if you can maintain that moderate intensity, it's going to improve the size of your placenta, its functional capacity, which is probably the biggest reason why your risk of developing preeclampsia is probably a lot lower. That can be related to the placenta. Your risk of your baby being too small, so intrauterine growth restrictions, this is when your baby is way too small for whatever size they're supposed to be. That's also related to the placenta. Something's going on with the placenta, that baby is not receiving the nutrients that they need. So this is a really big deal as well. And I think that's something that plays a huge role in why these babies have higher blood volume, why they're leaner when they're born, why they have these higher APGAR scores or like initial tests that they do to assess babies' well-being when they're born. And that all happens for moms that are exercising during their pregnancy, which is like pretty incredible.
That's amazing. It's again, it's like you said, like it's so obvious when you consider it. I just have never considered it until you said that. So yeah, I love that. I love thinking about that. It makes perfect sense. Like I said, when we're talking about exercise, I like that you kind of have a pretty wide definition of exercise. I didn't have to ask you what you define as exercise because maybe it was a too simplified question to ask. Like exercise, exercise. Get get your heart rate up, get moving. There's lots of different things you can do. What are some of your favorites through the different phases of pregnancy, prenatal? Let's start with kind of those phases. I'm assuming it's more along the lines of strength training.
Yeah, it is. I would say like in general though, whatever exercise you like. If you like walking, walk. Like
Start there.
I never want to tell somebody that they need to do something in a certain way just because I like it if they don't like that. If they're like, well, I don't really like doing that, or I don't really like lifting weights, or I don't like doing that, because then it's just going to deter them from doing it altogether. So at the bottom line is whatever movement you like to do that you enjoy, that you can motivate yourself to do that. And if it looks different from what I would do, that's fine. Now, I very firmly believe that there's a lot of benefits to strength training, even during pregnancy, especially in the postpartum and especially as women, because it's not something that we are commonly taught to do. Like usually, like maybe you join a CrossFit gym, maybe you just happen to like figure out lifting, you watch enough videos, but it's something that's incredibly beneficial for us, especially as we age. And one of my like favorite things is like I'm not training for my summer body, I'm training for my old lady body. Like one of the things that is like potentially going to kill you along the line is falling. And if your bones are not very strong, they're going to break. And then that's how people die when they're old. And that's really sad and tragic. So now during pregnancy, one of the things that happens is we have a lot more laxity within our joints. And that extra laxity can sometimes cause more pain. We have more mass during pregnancy, regardless if you gain no other weight other than your baby and your placenta and all your blood volume, you will gain weight during pregnancy at least like 10 to 15 pounds at least. That's still more mass than you had before. And because of that, we need to be strong so that we're not in pain during pregnancy. And so we get a lot of folks that are like, hey, I have tons of pelvic pain. What stretch should I do? Or my back hurts, or this hurts, or this hurts. What should I do? And I'm like, look, I can give you a stretch that is not going to help you. You need a strength train. Like you have too much movement happening. And the reason why you're in pain is because you're collapsing into positions because you don't have the strength to maintain an upright position. You don't have the strength to change positions. Like we need to strengthen our muscles to help. And that's one of the things that helps a lot of our clients that have pelvic pain, that have lower back pain, upper back pain, is strength training, like hands down. Strength training it's just so beneficial. Please do it. And we can do it safely during pregnancy. There's lots of ways to modify. You don't have to do like 1 rep maxes for every lift that you do. That's not beneficial for anybody. But during pregnancy, again, we can focus on that 70-80% effort level during the first and second trimester. We can think about making space for the belly. So if you're doing your deadlift and your belly's hitting your thighs and it feels uncomfortable, just widen your stance. Elevate the bar. Can we bring the bar up a little bit higher? We have all sorts of modifications for lifts in my book, Training for Two, on our YouTube channel, in our fitness programs. Like we tell you, hey, these are the 10 modifications that you can do for the deadlift. One of them is going to feel amazing for you and your body, and you should do that one. We can still, and weights, resistance training isn't just weights, it's also bands. It's really anything that's an external resistance. And we use tons of bands within our programming as well. But when we're lifting weights, we're just going to think about, can I maintain 70-80% effort level? So it's a good challenge. Like I feel like I can do like 8 to 10 reps before I'm like, that's a lot of reps. I don't want to do that anymore. But we want to maintain really good form the whole time. So we're focusing a little bit more on strict movements, maybe not as many like dynamic, really jumpy like Olympic lifts. It's like squats, deadlifts, strict press. Very like strict movements, because if we have too much movement, it can sometimes increase injury or decrease like the quality of your form. When we're doing our lifts, we should feel like we can maintain really good form. It's still very challenging for you. We're making space for the belly. So maybe we're widening our stance and then we add support. And so if you're like, my back kind of hurts at the bottom of the squat, squat to a box, decrease the range of motion. I feel like I can't quite reach the floor with my deadlift, elevate the barbell, put them on some plates, put them on some boxes so it's a little bit higher. There's all sorts of different modifications that we can do to make movements comfortable for us during pregnancy, but resistance training is going to be the one thing that's going to keep you comfortable. If you're having pelvic pain, you're having back pain, there's not a stretch that is really going to make it for you. Like we need to lift some weights, and it's going to be helpful for you postpartum too. Babies are heavy and they get heavier every day. Hopefully they get heavier every day. And my babies are all like little leeches where they're like suck on me and they're like they do not want to ever let go, and I need to carry them for like 3 years and they're heavy. And so being able to like carry your baby around and do things and to get up and off the floor easily is a big deal postpartum. And the way that you're going to do that is by lifting weights. That's how you get
Love that.
stronger. Now, obviously, like cardio and stuff is great. Like we should totally do that as well. But I would highly recommend like getting into some sort of lifting routine. There's tons of videos on YouTube. Like we have a YouTube channel that has like prenatal workouts as well. Like there's lots of free options out there. There's also paid offerings that are going to be more comprehensive, like paying for a trainer. But bottom line, if I get to tell you what to do, I'm going to tell you to lift weights. And we have clients that join our gym that have never lifted weights before at the beginning of their pregnancy. They're like, hey, I heard that this was good for me. And by the end of their
My
pregnancy, they're like,
favorite.
all my friends are complaining about back pain and pelvic pain, and I feel great. And I think it's because I'm lifting weights. And I'm like, it is. It is. Tell them to join the gym.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you so very much for including all of that. I couldn't agree with you more. Those are my favorite clients, the ones that are completely naive to strength training, that don't have to unlearn a bunch of stuff before
Yeah.
learning the other things. I think it's interesting that you said what you said about cardio, and cardio is fine to do, but I also wouldn't want to discount the cardiovascular benefit that has been proven by science that you get with strength training. So I would also say, like, don't feel bad if you're not doing tons of what we call quote unquote cardio. You're not running all the time. Like, you get cardiovascular benefit from strength training. That's shown in the science. So I wouldn't want somebody to think that those two things were mutually exclusive. And you know, when I first started as a personal trainer, you're taught about like functional fitness, and you know, you want to mimic certain movements of your life and do those in the gym. And then I, you know, slowly learned about slow, intense, high intensity strength training, where, you know, maybe you're using a machine and you're just pushing something very, very slowly and getting very close to failure. And the thing I like the most about your content is you tend to marry both of those together. You've got some functional things that people can be doing, but also the principles of like, we want a certain load on muscles. Whatever equipment you have is probably going to be fine as long as it's challenging you. You leave it really open, again, with all those like progressions and regressions. I think it's really, really helpful to stay open to all of those different movements and help people in a really comprehensive way.
Yeah, there's such a range of experience when it comes to exercising. I think a lot of folks are really motivated during pregnancy to do all the right things to support their baby's development. And so when we get these like brand new clients, we have to like give them like this big range. But we also get like professional athletes that want to work with us. And so I'm like, I'm not going to give the pro athlete the same exercises I give to like the beginner, but there's no reason why the beginner can't do anything. Like they can still do some stuff. And so giving them that big range so that we can explore what feels best for our body. Not only is that like physically preparing you for birth, but I think it's also like mentally preparing you as well in a way, because you have to really tune into what your body is telling you. Like for real, like not just like the athlete, like, oh, I'm listening to my body while I'm ignoring my knee pain and just slamming through this workout. Like, do athletes really know their bodies? So during prenatal fitness, we can really explore, how does this movement feel for me today? It might have felt different yesterday. It might feel different tomorrow, but today, this is the modification that I need to feel in my body. And so, one, we're letting go of ego. Like, it's okay if the bar is a little bit lighter than normal, or maybe it's a little bit heavier than I thought it might be. Like, well, that's surprising. That's cool. We're going to make sure that we're moving in a way that feels good for us in our bodies and really tuning into what that is. So we're not just, I'm going to do my normal back squat, even though my back hurts every rep I do. It's like, no, we're going to modify to a way that feels good for us. And we're going to explore to figure out what that modification is. And that's how we're going to empower ourselves during labor as well. Is, hey, like this maybe is a little bit harder than I was anticipating, or hey, maybe something has come up in my birth that I wasn't expecting that I need to change my initial plan for. Like maybe I'm planning a home birth and I have to transfer, or maybe my labor is just lasting a lot longer than I thought it was. I was hoping for a 10-minute labor, and apparently it's not that. And so when we have these like unexpected things happen during our birth, if we've been kind of preparing our whole pregnancy to let go of our ego and to kind of accept like what that day brought us or how we feel in our workout, it's going to be much easier to do during our birth. And so that's kind of one of the unexpected side effects of listening to your body during pregnancy, to exploring movement and how it feels, is it's going to help you be much more in tune to your body during labor, so that we can surrender and we can let go of expectations, not in a way that's like you have no control and just hope for the best, but like sometimes things are just like a little bit harder than you thought. Maybe it's a little bit easier than thought. Maybe it progresses faster or slower than you were anticipating. So not even like drastic things that are happening, just like really subtle things. The other thing is when you tune into your body, you're going to be more in tune with the subtle cues that your body gives you as well. Like we move in a certain way depending on where our baby is within our pelvis. If your baby is really high in the pelvis, you're going to be moving in a way to create more space in the top part to help them enter into the pelvis. As your baby gets lower, you start to shift in a different way because you're trying to create more space in the bottom part of your pelvis. You're trying to release different parts of your pelvic floor to help your baby navigate through. And you do that intuitively. You don't do that by thinking about it. But the more in tune you are with the body, the more aware of it you're going to be. And it's going to be motivating because you're going to be like, oh, I was moving like this before, but now I'm swaying. My baby's engaged. That's awesome. You're going to feel your baby like moving through your body. You're going to be like, oh, my baby's a lot lower than they were before. Like when my last baby was born, I felt her, like her head was like sticking out of my body. I felt her shoulders rotate. And I was like, well, that's
Wow.
cool. I mean, at the moment, I was like, this is not cool. Please get out of my body. But in hindsight, I was like, that was neat. And so that's kind of one of the cool side effects of exercising during your pregnancy and exploring all of the different variations of this one movement is you're going to be way more in tune to your body. You're going to be more well the subtle cues during pregnancy, which will translate to the subtle cues that you feel during labor. And it's going to help you let go of your ego. It doesn't matter how much weight you lift. Like, yeah, sure, that Instagram reel usually goes viral if somebody's like squatting a shit ton of weight. Like, it's super cool. But like, what did that mean? Like, did they feel good doing it? If they did, that's awesome. If they didn't and they were just hammering through it, well, maybe there was a move that would have felt better and we can let go of our ego as well. So there's a lot of balance, but it's like one of the unexpected things of exercising.
Yeah, totally. I think you and I have worked with enough like 50-year-olds who look back and say, you know what, maxing out those lifts when I was in high school probably wasn't the best idea. You know what I mean? And it comes back to bite them. And yeah, ego, I think, is such a big thing. It's a big thing around here where people, go through a pregnancy and they want to get right back to the weight that they were before. And they're so focused on that. We see people like days after they've had a baby and they're coming into the gym and working out hard. And it's like, I would give it a minute. Like I'd
Please don't do
rest up
that.
a little bit. Yeah. So I think that ego thing is really important.
Yeah, so with that, because there is a lot of pressure to like be as small as possible, and this is pressure like even outside of pregnancy and birth to as a woman, your value is your body and how small it can be, and like and it's one of those things that's like super hard to overcome, especially when it comes to pregnancy. And if you think about what sells, like, and you and I know this, when it comes to marketing fitness programs, if you can show some really good abs, a really big butt, and somebody's super small, you're going to make money. If you can show those before and after pictures where it's like so sad and fat, but super happy and skinny, like you're going to sell programs. It's a great marketing strategy because you are really just reeling into somebody's discomforts and their vulnerabilities, and you're making them feel like shit so that they buy your program. And there's a lot of that in the perinatal space. And some of them are more like coy about it, where they're like, this isn't a before and after picture. This is a before and stronger. I'm like, how is that stronger? She's still fucking smaller. Like it's a before and after picture, but you've rebranded it to pretend that you're not part of the problem. Like, shut the fuck up. Those make me more angry. And ultimately, if we think about it, the only body that has created life is the postpartum body. And that is fucking incredible. Like, you were a little goddess. Like, what are you going to tell me? I made a person. I made 4 people with the little assistance from my husband, but I did all the work. And then I birthed this person in the comfort of my home. And now, like, my body, my blood is literally nourishing them. Like, you can't tell me shit. And I think when we really like lean into that power of you created a literal life, like a literal human being you created with some minor assistance from your partner, and birth that person however they came out of your body, like whether it was vaginally, whether it was c-section, which for me, like I haven't had any c-section, and that is like the most powerful thing I think somebody can do is to surrender what they were probably planning for their birth to have surgery awake. Like that sounds terrifying, and that is incredible. Like you should get a gold star. I know like some people are like, you don't get a trophy if you give birth unmedicated. You should absolutely get a trophy if you have a C-section, because that sounds like a really challenging way to give birth. But like that is incredible. Like just lean into that. The other thing that I find really helpful with these to overcome these before and after pictures is smaller does not equal healthier. Where like just being a small size does not equal healthier in any way. It doesn't mean you feel better in your body. And I hear this a lot where they're like, I just have 10 more pounds to lose. What does that mean? Define that for me. Define 10 pounds. What will you have when you lose those 10 pounds? Probably the same thing you have right now. So we can stop hating ourselves and stop like restricting ourselves and like just hating this whole process because we just need to lose these last 10 pounds. What does that mean? I feel like I lose 10 pounds within a day, like depending on how much I eat and poop. Like my weight fluctuates all over the place, and I'm sure everyone else's does too. Like, what does the 10 pounds mean? And so if we can focus more on our function over the aesthetics, we're going to live a better life. We're going to live a bigger life. We're going to gain health. We're going to feel really happy. We're going to have a high quality of life. And it's okay if maybe your jeans are a little like you feel a little squishy in them. Get bigger jeans. We don't need to be wearing the jeans we wore in high school. That's weird. There's not there. I mean, I guess they're kind of in style now, but like we're no. Get some high-waisted leggings. Feel good in your body. You're not going to be in pain. You're going to have a higher quality of life. We're going to live a bigger life. Because guess what? You know what my kids don't care about? They don't care about my bikini size. Like, they don't care about my jean sizes. They're not like, oh man, I'm so glad that my mom like starved herself. No, you grew a literal human being. It's really hard to feel like confident in yourself with this like relentless onslaught of smaller bounce back, like blah blah blah. Like for the love of God, just enjoy the journey. It's a really fast journey, and so it might take a little bit of time to navigate it and to feel good in your body again. It might take like 4 to 6 months initially to feel like you got your feet underneath yourself again, and the baby has a sleep regression, and you're like, JK. Um, but the first year goes really fast. Like my baby just turned a year, and that went really quick. And I feel really great in my body. I want to help other people feel really good in their bodies because, again, it doesn't matter how small you are, what size jean you have, if you feel like shit. Like if your back hurts and your hips hurt and you can't get off the floor, you feel like you can't keep up with your kid. You feel like you're restricting yourself all the time because you're chasing this like false ideal of what will make you feel better or be better within your body. And it's hard to overcome all that, but just remember, you made a human being. You are a little goddess and no one can tell you shit.
That's probably my favorite podcasting answer I've ever gotten in all of my podcasts. So thank you so much. I'm going to send you the transcript, and I want that printed on a T-shirt or something. That was amazing. I've never heard you talk about this, so it's an honest question. It could backfire, and you could tell me like everybody needs to be vegan or something. I don't know, but you're talking to a lot of people in the audience who have found our work through needing to go on some type of a low carbohydrate type of diet, whether it's just considered maybe low carb and they've got to reduce their carbohydrates down to become metabolically healthy, whether it's a little bit more strict and they're getting into the keto space, or whether it's going like full carnivore and being a strict carnivore. Like a lot of our listeners are in that kind of world. Is there anything about that that would make you nervous through pregnancy, that if somebody had noticed that the diet had given them so much benefit, do they need to like bail out of it for some reason during pregnancy, or do you see those things being okay to be able to do during pregnancy as well?
So I'm not super savvy with nutrition, so I don't feel confident in giving like a for real answer, but there are
Sure.
some really amazing prenatal nutritionists, like people that specialize in pregnancy that I think would be like great people to follow. So like the prenatal nutritionists, like if you just type that in, there's gonna be like 10 of them that pop up. And they have really great resources on like their recommendations. But ultimately, like in the first trimester, I would say like eating whatever you can is probably like more beneficial than trying to stick to a strict diet. If there's a specific diet that you find works really well for you and helps you feel good in your body, stick with it. Like I don't personally, I don't think that there's a problem with that. If you're finding that the diet doesn't work for you or you don't feel good in your body anymore, then maybe we need to adjust. So similar to exercising, just because I exercise in this one specific way pre-pregnancy doesn't mean that I'm going to stick with that in that exact format during my pregnancy either. And so this is just another way to be in tune with our body and to let go of our ego. I will say that eating meat, I think, is important during pregnancy. That would probably be like the one recommendation that I have for if somebody is vegan or vegetarian to figure out how they can incorporate some sort of collagen or protein source, because it's really important when it comes to your tissue health, especially if you're pushing a baby out of your body. So the clients that I've had that were like strict vegans or like vegetarian, when they had a vaginal tear, it was really difficult for the provider to repair because the tissue just didn't maintain its position as well because they just weren't eating enough protein. So that would be like my one thing if somebody does have like a very specific diet that they follow. is I would look into figure out how to incorporate some sort of protein source that is maybe animal based, if that feels okay for them. Because I know for some of the vegans that may not feel okay, like a collagen source or something is going to be really important just for like tissue integrity and strength. But if you're like, I'll just suffer the consequences, that's fine. But that would be my only thing is I would say like please try to eat some sort of animal-based protein. I think that's incredibly beneficial for your tissue growth
Perfect.
during pregnancy. But overall, as long as you feel good, again, really tuning in, not just like really tuning in to your body and how it feels for you. If it feels good, then go for it. If you feel like, hey, I might be a little low on energy or I might need to adjust a little or add a little bit more of X, Y, or Z, I think that's totally fine to do. It doesn't have to be super strict during pregnancy. And then I would follow those prenatal nutritionists. Ryan Kipping is her name. She is the prenatal nutritionist. She has a library that she has, like an app that she offers as well. So, and she probably has a ton of content specifically on keto during pregnancy, low carb during pregnancy, where she would be able to give like a much more well-rounded answer. And then Lily Nichols is another one that she has like, I think she has like 3 books on nutrition during pregnancy that I would also highly recommend, especially if you have any sort of like specific diets that you're wanting to do, or you're just trying to optimize it during pregnancy. Like maybe you don't have a specific diet that you're trying to do. The other thing that I would say for me personally, I did follow like the autoimmune paleo diet before I got pregnant with my second, just because I was having recurrent miscarriages due to an autoimmune thing, and that really helped me kind of optimize my health going into pregnancy. So I'm always a really big fan of doing blood work in the preconception phase, so before you're trying to have a baby with your provider that's really in depth to really understand like what's going on with your thyroid, your iron levels, all your other levels of things so that you have a really clear picture on like what's going on with your health so that if you need to make nutritional changes or you need to supplement or maybe you need to take medication to optimize your stores as best as possible, I would highly recommend that as well if that is available to somebody. So I did the autoimmune paleo thing before my pregnancies. I couldn't maintain it during because life is hard during first trimester. But that was just something I personally did for myself. But not that I recommend to everybody, but it was just something based on my own blood work and stuff that I found.
Awesome. Yeah, we've hosted Lily on our show, and I've got her book about 6 inches away from my head right now. So she's a good person to follow, and I really appreciate that honest and yeah, really good answer. Very well explained. I love that. Okay, so my wife and I we run our own business. We belong to a healthcare alternative that's crowd-funded healthcare, essentially. So this company called Crowd Health, we belong to. We essentially anybody who joins the group, we all pay each other's like medical bills when they come up. It's people that are young, they're healthy. Health insurance is so bloody expensive for most of us, and it's not something we ever use. Like I haven't used health insurance in years. I never use it because it's more for like chronic care, whatever. So we're part of this group, and it's amazing. Really love it, and we just crowdsource everybody's bills. And every month we get a report on this is where the money was spent. 40% of the bills were injuries. Somebody gets smacked on their bike because they're active and healthy. A huge percentage of it is also pregnancies. And this probably won't surprise you. When I heard the number, I was quite surprised. The number, the proportion of births in our community, in this health insurance alternative community, that are home births versus hospital births, it's like half and half. It's crazy high. The number of people that want to have home births in this alternate kind of space, people that are really health conscious, and again, don't really qualify don't want to pay for health insurance, it's not really going to help them. So for somebody that hears like a home birth and they think like, well, that's barbaric. Like, didn't lots of kids die in home birth like through the thousands of years, and that's why our life expectancy was so much lower? Like, there's so many risks. You're not in a hospital. Blah blah blah. Can you talk about some of the benefits of a home birth in relation to just deciding that you're just going to do the hospital birth without really giving it much consideration?
So I've had 3 home births. So I've given birth 4 times, and the last 3 were home births. So I am a little biased because I liked my home births a lot. But the biggest things for me personally, that wanted me to have a home birth was one, I wanted to know who was in my space. For my first birth was on the more traumatic side, and it was because of the provider. The provider was not a supportive person, and they were having a bad day. I didn't know who these nurses were. When I was pushing my baby out, I was butt naked, and there was like 15 people in the room, and that's not an exaggeration. Like the room was packed with random
Yes.
people. And it was really overwhelming. And I pushed for 2.5 hours. I wonder why, because there's 15 people staring at my butthole. Like that's not comforting. It's really hard for my sphincter to relax in that way. And so that was one of the biggest reasons why I chose home birth for my next three was I wanted to control who was in my space because that was going to help me feel most safe and comfortable during my labor. Oxytocin is one of the main labor hormones, and the way that it's released is when you feel safe, when you feel supportive. It's your love hormone. And if we want to have a labor that has less interruptions and less issues, we want to make sure that we're laboring in a space that feels safe for us. And for me, the place that I felt safest was at home. I also had hour-long appointments with my midwife throughout my entire pregnancy, as opposed to whenever I had an OB visit, which was like maybe 10 minutes-ish, and it was just kind of like a hi. I've had really good experiences with OBs, especially with my recurrent miscarriages. Like they were really compassionate. Like those appointments were definitely a lot longer, but I was like a special case. I was like high risk at that point. Um, Once I was kind of like low risk and a normal person again, the midwife was the best choice for me. Like I was a low risk person. I didn't really have like any other health complications that would make giving birth at home unsafe. I wanted to have full control over who was in my space, and I felt the better there. When I think about like what my first labor felt like versus what my next three, my first labor I had an epidural, my next three I didn't. At no point during my next three births at home did I feel like I needed one because I was so comfortable in my space. There was nothing kind of contributing towards additional anxiety that was making me feel uncomfortable. And that was the biggest reason why I was spiraling during my first birth was I didn't feel comfortable in that space. I didn't feel supported in that space by the team. So that was like my biggest reason. And I think that's a big reason for a lot of folks is they want more comprehensive care throughout their pregnancy. Home birth midwives tend to have lower patient volume, so they can spend more time with you. My postpartum care, I had 3 visits at home. I didn't have to leave my house. Like the midwife came, her birth assistant came, and they provided me postpartum care. They checked on my baby. I didn't have to go to a pediatrician at 3 days postpartum. Like they came to my home. Like a midwife within our state is able to provide that care for the first like month of life. And then at the 6 week mark is I think when I went to her for my like final visit with her, and it was an hour long. So having that like additional care was like a really big deal to me as well because it really allowed me to build like a really solid relationship with my midwife. The way that we can help home birth be safe is by having a medical provider there. There are like things that can happen during birth, and those are the things that kill people. So you bleed too much, or your baby doesn't transition well, so they don't breathe when they're born. And this is what a medical provider is there for, to help you with those emergent situations. Now, there's like a whole free birth society that has like ways that they manage that kind of stuff. And I don't want to tell anybody they can't do what they want to do. My personal opinion is it's really important to have a medical provider because that's how we keep people safe during their birth, to have a midwife that's monitoring you during your labor and then to be there postpartum, like at the initial birth, if there are any emergent complications, because those are the things that kill people. If you are fairly low risk, the things that we're looking for during pregnancy and postpartum are kind of like these little yellow flags or little pink flags. We're not waiting for an emergency. So we're not like, oh, your baby is like completely decelled. Like, let's transfer. No, there's gonna be like little, like the road maps of like, if this, then these might be the two possibilities. One might be totally fine, but the other one could be catastrophic. So we should probably transfer. And having a medical provider that takes that seriously, it is not home birth or bust is going to be really important. And that's what I had with my midwife. Like, I fully trusted that she was going to be patient and allow things to progress normally, and that wasn't going to rush me, and that she wasn't going to just transfer me because she was bored or like I was taking too long. Like, if I was transferring, it was because like I needed to, even if it ends up being totally fine in the hospital. And so we're looking for those like pink flags or little yellow flags that let us know like it's not a problem now, but it could become one, and it would be safer for you to be at a hospital where they have more interventions available. And this will vary from midwife to midwife what those things are. Some midwives, you develop a complication during pregnancy that requires induction. Obviously, they can't do that at home. You need to be at a hospital for that. If you guys decide that it's safer for you to give birth now versus wait for spontaneous labor. If there are different things during labor, this might be an issue, this might not be an issue. Like, well, we should transfer, we shouldn't transfer. And those will all be conversations that you should have with your midwife beforehand. And that's how we keep people safe. Like, it's not, hey, every single person is going to give birth at home. Not everybody should give birth at home. Like, as much as I would love for everyone to do it, not everybody's a good candidate for it. And so finding a midwife that has agreed that you're a good candidate is really important. Having a medical provider there is equally as important. And then there are even OBs that'll support home births too. So if you have like a higher risk birth, like twins or breech, sometimes OBs will be the ones that can tend your home birth as well. And so, yeah, it varies from person to person. Ultimately, if you're a low risk, I think it's better to give birth at home if you want to. The people in your insurance group are probably all really healthy people too, so it makes sense for them to give birth at home. They're probably a little bit more health conscious as well, which is going to make a big difference. But yeah, it's not home birth or bust. It's about identifying yellow flags to see, like, is this a safer place for us to be? And most of the time it is. I find that when you give birth at home, people are more patient with you. They have to utilize different tools to help support your labor that are not medical interventions. Not that interventions are bad, but not everybody needs them. And if you don't know, if you only watch birth from a monitor, just to like be a little like controversial, if you only have seen people laboring from a monitor, you're not going to be tuned in with those subtle cues, and you're not going to know what to do when somebody's having issues during their birth other than give them something that you can walk out the room from. So if it's like, oh, their labor is stalling. Well, if you're at home, I don't have Pitocin that I can give you. I have to figure out movements and ways to help support your baby's position, which means I have to understand pelvic mechanics and I have to understand how to identify your baby's position without an ultrasound. How do I do that? I do that by putting my, not me, the midwife does it by putting their hands on your belly, assessing baby's position, maybe a cervical exam to figure out where baby's sutures are, to figure out their positioning. All right, baby's in this position. We're going to try these movements. Maybe there's like a tincture or like an herb or something that we can give you to help strengthen labor. Maybe we eat something. Maybe we rest. Maybe we drink. So we have to utilize different tools. If we're in a hospital and labor stalls, here's some Pitocin. Okay, it didn't go anywhere. Ah, that sucks. Your body's just really bad at this. But that's what happens when you watch birth from a monitor. And now that's not every hospital. That's not every provider by any means. I know that there are some like really great ones out there, but to start back to the question on why did I choose home birth? Why do I recommend home birth? If you're a low risk, you're a pretty healthy person, you find a provider that wants to support you, I think it's a great option. I think it's a really great place to be if you want to feel the most supported in your birth. You cannot have a home birth in a hospital. I know that there are people that say like, oh, you can set the vibe. Like, yeah, you can set the vibe. It can be a really great experience. You can have a good experience in a hospital, but you cannot have a home birth in the hospital. And I think if you want a home birth, you need to just do it at home with a midwife or with an OB if that's an option for you. Um, and then if you want to give birth in a hospital, that's fine too. But we need to find a provider that you trust, that you feel fully supported by, that you trust to help guide you through your medical decisions. And that applies to a midwife as well. Like, but you want to make sure that your provider is somebody that you honestly feel like you can ask questions to, and they will be like, oh yeah, let's talk about it. And so if you leave your prenatal appointments and you don't feel good, like you feel like more anxious, that's a problem. We don't want to feel like that. That's going to impact you during your labor. If you leave your appointments and you feel really good and you feel like I can ask my provider any question, and if I tell them that I'm anxious, they're going to do everything they can to make me not be anxious. That's great. It doesn't matter if you're giving birth in a hospital or home. That's amazing. Like, we want that with our providers. And if you have that, that's going to allow you to trust them, to lean into their expertise to better support you during your birth. Like, I am not an OB and I'm not a midwife and I don't pretend to be. And I don't think it's reasonable for somebody who's never given birth before to have the same level of expertise as their medical provider by the time they give birth within 9 months. Like, that's a lot to put onto somebody. And so we need to choose a provider, regardless if it's at home or in the hospital, that we truly and firmly believe will guide us during our birth, that we can trust to help make medical decisions without feeling like we need to do all of the research ourselves. And so one of the really easy ways to advocate for yourself, whether it's in a hospital or as at birth, is just to communicate how you feel. I feel anxious. I feel scared. I feel really great. And if you communicate that, you don't have to know the 18 pages of papers to help support the decision that you're hoping for or that you're wanting for your birth. Because your provider should, in theory, understand that you're anxious and give you some tools to help you not feel anxious anymore. You feel anxious about induction? Oh, well, let's talk about it. Why do you feel anxious about induction? What questions can I answer for you? Oh, maybe we don't need to induce. Maybe we could do something else. So that would be, I think, even more important than where you give birth. But if you think you want a home birth, give birth at home with a medical provider, with a midwife, and make sure that midwife is one that takes her job very seriously, or his or her job very seriously, that they're not just like, oh, we're going to give birth at home or else. That's not a good approach either. that's how people do die. But we would like to not do that. But there's much more to birth than being alive. At the end, I think that's like the bare minimum, is everyone's alive and healthy at the end of our birth, like a very low bar to achieve. There's so much room to feel respected and empowered during our birth experience. And that is really going to set the stage for beyond us giving birth. That's going to set the stage for your motherhood. Like, you leave your birth feeling like a badass, regardless of how you give birth, where you give birth. You leave that birth feeling like a badass, you're going to go into motherhood and be unstoppable. Like, think about them kids. Like, they're going to be like, my mom's a badass. Like, so yeah, I think that was a really long answer to your question, but
That was a great answer. That was a great answer. If I was your kids, I wouldn't mess with you either. So it's
yeah,
a
they
good
don't.
thing. No, well, I'm glad that this has been an absolute flyby kind of episode. There was so much more detail we could have gone into. You wrote the book, so people can go and find the book. It's a wonderful resource. I like the way you've broken it up into even the different trimesters. It's a great resource for people out there. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I think it's been very empowering for our listeners as well to understand that not everything is in their control, but there are some things that are that they can be thinking about. So I've really, like I said, enjoyed this conversation. Gina, where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you in your work? And where can people pick up the book?
So you can grab the book wherever you buy books from online, probably. I don't know how many stores have it in person, but like Amazon, like Barnes and Nobles, all those good places. And the book is called Training for Two. If you want to learn more from me online, if you just look up MamasteFit, so it's like Namaste with an M at the beginning, fit. On any of the social platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We post a ton over on YouTube. And then if you want to check out any of our fitness programs or our childbirth education course or any of our paid offerings, we have that on our website at mamastayfit.com. So everything's the same word. If you just put it in Google, all of it will pop up for you. I'm sure you'll put it in your show notes as well.
We definitely will. We'll put it in the show notes so people can find it. It seems like you're pretty easy to find anyway. But yeah, again, so many resources for people out there, even just the free ones that people can get started with, and then they can go a little bit deeper with you. But yeah, just really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, thank you so very much for all of your work. And thank you for taking time to be on our show today to discuss this super important topic. We really appreciate you, Gina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It was my honor. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.